Good morning, everybody. Delighted to see everybody here today on day 2 of the She Loves Tech annual conference. And I have to say, I'm a little biased. This is probably the panel I've been looking forward to the most, given that we at Teja Ventures this year just launched our second fund focused on the future of consumption, backing next generation category leaders for the emerging Asian middle class. So I'm honored here to have Jaxx and Karl and Patricia here with me, all whom are building and creating category leaders, or actually creating new types of categories, in their respective companies. So I think the first thing I wanted to really ask our panel is to really share your stories of how you got here today. Why are you really creating consumption category leaders for the future? So Jackson, perhaps we can start with your story, how you started from a check, a loan in 2012 to actually building Mighty Jaxx of today.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jackson. I'm the founder of Mighty Jaxx. Mighty Jaxx is a brand based in Singapore that creates digital collectibles. So we work with Disney, Marvel, Warner Brothers, and so on to create collectibles, and we ship out to over 80 countries, right? The origin story of it is really, I'm just a huge collector myself. Like, I love toys. And so I have a problem, right? The problem is that how can I afford to buy more toys? And so we have to start designing a business model that allows us to have infinite resources for me to continue to live my dream and purchase the collectibles. And so very early on, I think 2012, I went down to China on there was a direct flight, one-way ticket, knock on factory doors to understand how manufacturing was being done, for the collectibles. And from then on, came back, borrowed 20,000, put it into the first product, and never looked back. So that was the start of it all. Yeah.
Did you, from that first $20,000 loan from your parents, and then seeing to where you are today, did you ever think that Mighty Jaxx would become a lot more than just a toy company?
Yeah. By the way, the 20,000 loan is not really from my family because they don't have 20,000, right? But I don't have credit score too, so that's a problem. So I had to use the credit card and max it out pretty much. That was how it was. Now with what Mighty Jaxx is, came from the last 10 years, growing from just a simple collectible toy setup into what it is now. I would have never imagined that it would be like that. But then our paths are often not linear in that way. And I think a lot of the things that helped me through this journey was really keeping an open mind about how to integrate with new opportunities that came by. The difference is that sometimes it will fail, sometimes it doesn't fail. But the point is that you made an effort to do it. And I think that you owe it to yourself to want to discover whether it works for you. And so it's always with that mindset that we are able to progress to this point.
Great. We'll talk about some of those new opportunities later. Patricia.
Right. So hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. So my journey started in 2007 when I joined P&G in Singapore. My role is really analytics and insights. And what we do is we figure out growth opportunities based on consumer centricity using human empathy, data, and tech. And people ask me, why have you lasted that long in one company? And one of my passions is really curiosity. I love learning about people. And I think the company I'm in has given me that opportunity to just tell these consumer stories as we build the brand. So that's been my journey. It's all about the human side of marketing, of branding, and bringing in that consumer, that human story in as we build brands.
Hi everyone, my name is Karl. I'm the co-founder, CEO of HEPMIL Media Group. For my journey, I started a meme page in the back of a university classroom with my co-founder. We ended up building more meme pages across the region, and we recently bought one. We have about 70 million unique individuals consuming our memes and funny videos on social media. In 2020, right before the pandemic hit us, I started looking at these new creators called TikTokers come online. Many of them were really funny but made no money. So I asked myself this question: what could we do to bring all the funniest people in Southeast Asia together and make some money together? So that gave birth to a new business for us called the HEPMIL Creator Network. We have about 1,000 creators across Southeast Asia, 6 markets. We work primarily with brands and agencies to help get their messages through creators onto our network. So yeah, that's me.
I like that. Really funny, but making no money. So that's a pain point. I want to talk a little bit more about what is the new consumer look like, the consumer that you guys are striving to serve, right? There's 6 key trends that we've identified at Teja when we look at the future of consumption. Digital is the new normal, right? And I think post-pandemic, everybody's just like, yep, digital. But I really think pre-pandemic, back in 2019, digital being the new normal wasn't actually a given. You know, it was coming, but I think that pandemic has really accelerated that. I think, you know, what's really fascinated me by a lot of your businesses, I realize, is that people are not just buying things anymore, but people are really buying social capital. They're buying the content, they're buying the messages and the values and the branding behind a lot of these things. So in a digital economy, I've always believed that content and social capital are king. The convergence of Web3 and retail, you know, how Web3 infrastructure is actually creating disruption opportunities for us in commerce, in media, and in retail, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Sustainability becoming a real commercial opportunity, a growth driver for innovation, and not just a CSR point. The people wanting to buy local, creating a big opportunity for local brands versus just, you know, US, you know, or foreign brands. And that increased spending on health, wellness, nutrition, something that honestly I would never have associated Southeast Asia with pre-pandemic, right? So I want to just ask you guys, what are the key consumer trends that you are seeing, which is shaping the products that you're building, and what does that new consumer look like?
I think for me, we think a lot about digital audiences, right? So I kind of grew up in a generation where I would rush home for 7 p.m., my favorite show, and just sit there and watch for the next hour or half hour, and just kind of maybe watch that with my entire family. For those of you who live in Singapore, you would think of shows like Phua Chu Kang, Under One Roof, right? Where it's kind of catered for the whole family. Today, if you go into any household anywhere across Southeast Asia, you would see kind of multiple screens, probably a lot of phones, everybody kind of watching what they want to watch on their own device, which has fundamentally changed the way that I think people consume content, right? You want to have content that speaks to you, that's personalized. You want content on the format, on the device that you want it right now. And it could be content that's produced by, let's say, a big media company like Viacom, or more probably, you would see kids watching content created by somebody that lives within their own country, their own city, right? So for a lot of young people, we see a huge shift in consumption patterns when it comes to the types of content they're watching, because we grew up in the 90s, 80s, in a generation where you just watch what's given to you. Now people have a choice. And in fact, they have a lot of choice, right? So you think about the subscription wars between Netflix and View and Disney and everybody else that's fighting in that space. And then you think about the millions of creators that are being born every single day, not just in this part of the world, but globally. Everybody has an opportunity to allocate and invest a portion of your day to spend time with a creator, right? And I think that is the real shift that we're super excited by, because we've seen these stories where kids born out of the pandemic have huge traction. And these are not people that came from acting school or came from big media backgrounds. They're just kids in their bedrooms. And I think that's a very powerful shift that's super exciting.
And why are these creators or TikTokers, right, or YouTubers becoming increasingly key to retail and to the future of consumption? Why, you know, in the past, retailers would just hire a big star, right? Like a Rihanna, you know, just to rep them. Now Rihanna has her own brand, right? But why are these creators becoming so key?
One big shift that we talk a lot about with our partners is that first generation of online personalities, we call them influencers, right? So the format and the medium was very much Instagram, where everything is beautiful, you have a wonderful life, everything is flawless about you, right? But if you see the fundamental shift in creators today, it's very different, right? On a platform like TikTok, there are no filters you can use. You're not posting an image of yourself that's heavily edited. It's usually a short video format. And that shifts the way stories are told, right? We call it authentic storytelling more than influencers now. That's why the shift from influencer to creator is actually a big shift in the industry for us to think about. And the key word here is authentic storytelling. It's not about the filters. It's not about having a perfect life. It's about being real with your audiences, which is really the theme that we're seeing in the last 2 years or so, where brands now want to be connected to authentic creators who influence through authenticity versus a filter or versus that perfect life that they portray online. And I think that shift only happened in the last 24 months or so.
Patricia?
No, I love what you said, that people don't just buy products, they buy solutions. And then when they buy solutions, they actually want to solve something. And I think we saw this a lot in the pandemic, right? So you've seen, I'll talk about 3 trends. The first one is really consumers, people are getting busier. And I think all of us can relate during the pandemic, like we were stuck at home, like there's working from home, there's like homeschooling. And on top of that, you have your job, there's like the home to take care of. And, we talked to this consumer in Saudi. She was so proud to take care of her family, but she was also telling us how she's proud because she has a new job. And then she started thinking there's so much to juggle. There's so much to juggle. So then we started thinking about how do we help people, how do we help consumers, right? Just ease that mental load, ease that load. And this is where we started innovating on pods, right? Like just make the load a little easier. This is where we started helping consumers with packaging innovations. Instead of flipping the dishwashing bottle, just squeeze it. So this whole trend of like people getting busier, like there's a lot more to juggle. It became so prominent during the pandemic, and how do we help consumers with our innovations on that? The second piece related to what you're saying is, it's true that when people now consume media, it's changed over the past years. If I think about 60s, 70s, even in the more recent 90s, we used to just give information, right? But then when we started talking to consumers about their media habits, there was this guy in India, and we talked about, hey, so tell us, when was the last time you went online and what happened? He was like, yeah, there was this, I had back-to-back meetings the whole day, and I had this little 15-minute window. I just wanted to take a break. I just wanted to have that boost of energy. So he went on Instagram and looked for reels to be entertained. So this is the other shift we're seeing on how people interact with media, right? It used to be just, I want to get information. Now, no, it's help me boost this energy, help entertain me, right? And this is where like platforms are providing people with this opportunity. Instead of just getting that information, how do you entertain, right? So this is a second big shift, and that we saw this accelerate in the pandemic. The third big piece that we're seeing is, as we talk about people not just buying products, but buying solutions, they want to start getting involved in social good, right? You mentioned sustainability. There's also a lot of, trend, and, like how people want to join conversations on equality, right? And that's shifting the way they interact with products, that's shifting the way they choose brands. So these are the big 3 that we've seen across the world.
Thank you, Patricia. Jackson, you serve a very unique type of consumer, right? What we call a fan. And Mighty Jaxx has really built its reputation on serving a lot of these fandoms and actually, really empowering local and actually sometimes very, very unknown sort of designers, right? So what does your consumer look like? And how is this changing?
Well, we have been approaching this from a product sort of perspective for a very long time. And up until probably about the last 18 months, we began to think about what does it mean to detach the product away from the consumer, right? And so we look at the demographic that we do have. The core of them is 18 to 35. I would say in different geographic, 70% of them are female. Surprisingly, especially in China, that's a very big focus for us. And the other side of the world generally is about 60% or so on the male side of things. And when we look at why they make the purchase, end of the day, it is the affinity between the brand and the fan themselves. Now, then what kind of brand, right? It could be Stranger Things or from Netflix. It could be from Disney. It could be from Warner Brothers. It doesn't really matter. But all these different IPs would then have a certain affinity with each individual because maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they grew up with it. And they watched the Saturday cartoons that Karl was mentioning about. And so they remember a fragment of that memory. And then 10 years down, 15 years down, you go into disposable income. You want to spend that to have a little bit of the memory back again. And so when we look at it as a whole, the end takeaway for us is how do we then design something that allows us to understand how a fan journey and the affinity between the brands and them would evolve over the next 10 to 15 years. And so that is beyond just a hard product, right? So that has to have some digital capabilities that's tied into it so that we can understand the fan journey in a more longer term. And end of the day, create better value for them. Now, the value could come in a form of monetary. It could come in a form of content as well, exclusive content that they can unlock, right? These are all a lot of fan services work that we have been doing. And so we tend to look at it from a affinity sort of relationship between.
So you think that the fact that, because when I look at Mighty Jaxx, I don't see you guys as a toy company. I never have. I see you guys as actually an IP company, a content and IP company, and an enabler of that. So you're saying that you think people are actually willing to spend, let's say, $300, $500 on a toy or an asset, right? Because of that emotional resonance with that IP. You said it reminds them of their childhood, etc. Why do fans keep coming back?
Especially so, I think, in this period of time, and also explains why we are all here in person today, because we are inherently social creatures, right? We want to be in a place somewhere. We want to experience something in person. I mean, the metaverse and everything is great, but over here it's in real life. And so when you go to an experience like that, whatever exhibit that you have been before, you take a walk in a journey. The barrier of entry is very low, $20, $30, get a ticket, right? Go into it. And as you go through that journey and you resonate with the content that you see in the space, end of the day, you see a bunch of products. Do you buy them or do you not buy them? Now, more often than not, you do. And the reason why you buy them is not because they're the best shirt ever or the best magnet ever, but it captures the memory of your time over here. That can remind you over and over again in many, many ways of your lives. And at the same time, you want to have that for your friends as well. You want to share that memory. And so that memory sharing part of it is a very powerful tool that allows, first of all, the sale of the product as well, but you don't look at the product as product anymore, right? You look at it as a figment, right?
Understand. I'm going to deep dive into some of the trends that each of you guys talked about, right? I think Karl, right? You talked about actually, the rise of the creator economy, which I believe is a big trend for the future of consumption. I want to talk a little bit more about the opportunities around that. Patricia, you talked about consumers getting busier. P&G really trying to really focus on what the consumer needs, right? And I want to talk a little bit more about sustainability. Jackson, you talk about what keeps consumers actually coming back, right? Why are they why do they have that emotional attachment to that particular IP? And actually, I want to talk about some of the opportunities that Web3 is actually creating, right? For a company like Mighty Jaxx. So perhaps, Karl, right? Can we talk a little bit more about this creator economy? I think this is going to be a new term for a lot of people in the audience. It was a new term for me, let's say 2 years ago, and I spent a lot of time looking at it. The creator economy is exploding across the world. 50 million creators. I think YouTube alone, right? That's $30 billion of revenue a year. Can you talk about, you talked about you have a new arm at HEPMIL Media Group, right? And that is actually really facilitating, becoming an enabler of creators, whereas in the past, SGAG and its platforms only really just created your own content. Can you talk about that evolution and why you think it's important for a platform to actually enable creators?
I think the number one thing I started seeing was that why is this happening? Because if we really study the media industry and we think about the formats of the consumption that have been dominant, and we think about the time frames of dominance, right? So we think about TV, we think about print, we think about radio, and we think about the technology, how much has really changed. You kind of went from like no color to color, that's kind of it, right? And then you went from no color newspapers to color, that's kind of it, right? And the mode of consumption has been around for centuries for these mediums, right? People have been watching TV and listening to radios for like long time. And then you think about your personal journey as an individual, right? If you are somebody who, let's say, was watching YouTube a couple of years ago, now you're on TikTok, and these shifts have happened in the span of months, right? Very, very quickly. TikTok didn't exist, a couple of years ago, and now there was this statistic I was looking at. Their revenue, Douyin in China, is higher than all the TV stations combined, and it's a matter of 5 years, right? So the rapid rate of disruption is something that's completely changed. So in the old world of traditional media, media is often a function of product times distribution, right? So in the old world of media, if you wanted to start a newspaper company or TV station in the 90s, you needed to be like a billionaire with connections to political parties to get a license to do so, right? So because it's a monopolistic distribution, therefore product doesn't matter. You could have the worst article, the worst show, but you're in monopoly, so everybody's just gonna watch you at 7 p.m. But if you think about the new world today, you can start a podcast, I can start a podcast, a YouTube channel, a TikTok channel, and if you have 1 million followers and I have like 2, it's because you have a better product. So distribution is now free, it's now open for all. Product matters a lot more, and I think that is super exciting, which is why I asked this question. Why is my 6-year-old son switching on YouTube, and the first thing he wants to watch is this kid called Ryan who lives with his parents in the US? And he's like, Daddy, I want to watch Ryan. I want to buy Ryan's toys. I want to buy Ryan's t-shirt. I'm like, who is this Ryan? And then I see him on newspaper. This kid made $50 million last year. I'm like, what? How does a 12-year-old kid make $50 million, right? It's completely impossible. And he single-handedly destroyed Nickelodeon and all these TV channels that we used to grow up with, a kid living with his parents. And these things, if you talk about this 20 years ago in some sort of tech conference or VC conference, it's unimaginable, right?
So why do creators need platforms like you to build their $50 million empires? How are you helping them?
I think fundamentally we look at Southeast Asia, right? And we look at Southeast Asia and what's happening, right? I think a lot of us would have read the Google reports that come out every year with Bain and Temasek. And the one thing that we see is that people are coming online for the first time. And when you come online for the first time, you kind of skip the computer, you skip the tablet, you go straight to the phone. And the first thing you do on a phone is probably to create. A lot of Gen Zs just start creating, right? And a lot of them have amassed huge followings that actually they don't know what that potential is, right? So in terms of monetization as a region, creators in Southeast Asia probably make one of the lowest payouts or lowest monetization levels across the world, especially in verticals like comedy. It's probably one of the lowest compared to like beauty and all travel and all these other guys. So we felt like there was this huge upside in the region because there's this huge digital growing population, primarily young kids and young people consuming all these young creators, but monetization still remains as one of the key problems, and we thought that was a very, very interesting problem to solve for, also because people look at Southeast Asia like, oh, it's the fastest growing region, but hey, those are 6 or more massive markets, super nuanced between each of them, and just super different across the creator economies individually, and that's a really difficult problem to solve for.
And also, no banks are generally lending to creators, even famous actors and actresses. We're noticing that. So that's actually really, really interesting. Thank you, Karl. Patricia, right? Why are consumers willing to pay more for sustainability? What is that unique opportunity set for P&G?
No, absolutely. So people ask me like, is sustainability a fad or no? It's actually not. It's here to stay, right? And if I think about going back to that whole idea of consumers not just buy products, they buy solutions to solve for something or to feel something. Today, a lot of people start to care a lot about their footprint, right? So if I think about, like habits, if we see a shift in terms of like, from hot water to cold water in washing clothes, right? So the way we started looking at it is, how can we really be intentional in creating superior brand experiences to enable sustainable habits and sustainability? So one example that I could think about is, as I think about detergents and think about washing clothes, if you actually shift from hot water to cold water, it reduces your footprint significantly. It uses less energy, so that footprint is much less versus like if you use hot. So we started asking ourselves, if this is a habit, right? If this is a behavior that is enabling sustainability and consumers are actually starting to do it, we asked ourselves, what kind of innovation can we give them, right, to enable this and still drive that superior brand experience? So we have the Tide Pods, and we've designed it in a way that works as well or even better in these sustainable conditions. And we need to be intentional about it, right? It's not like an afterthought. It's not like a by the way. It needs to be integrated on how we think about our strategy. Another more recent favorite I've had, which is local to Singapore, is this sassy clean, right? So at the end of the day, people still want clean hands. Like they want hygiene, but how do we do it in a way that again enables the sustainability? So sassy clean is this, it's fresher, it's no mess, and it comes in the form of like foamy papers. You just add water to it and then you get clean hands, right? But that's the whole idea. We need to make sure that sustainability is part of that superiority strategy and not an afterthought.
And in your experience, are consumers actually willing to pay more for sustainability?
Absolutely. The Sassy Clean, it went out of stock in 72 hours. And pods is one of the biggest drivers of growth.
And are they the same price as your old products, or are they priced slightly higher?
Slightly higher.
Interesting.
It's so interesting, and that's the thing. When consumers find a meaningful solution to problems they want to solve, right? It adds value to them, and that's where, like to your point, they're willing to pay a premium because it's all about solving something. It's all about meeting those values. Another example. We see, in markets where we have auto dishwash, we see there's this misconception of, I waste water. But then actually, we started looking at the habit. You actually save a lot more water if you use auto dishwash versus if you let the tap run on, right? So then we started asking, how can we create this superior experience and enable a more sustainable habit? So our auto dishwash pods work better in that condition. So if you, going back to your point, I love the point you made on people don't just buy products, they buy solutions to solve for something. And if that solution is giving additional value to them, in line with what they believe in the context they're in, that's when they're willing to pay a premium.
Understand. So it's not about sustainability as a catchword, but really integrating that into product design and actually going back to the consumer user experience.
Absolutely. And
Thank
then
you, Patricia.
that sustainability is a value they start to believe in. So you need to be very intentional about it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think brands do need to be intentional, or else people will just think it's greenwashing. So back to Jackson. Mighty Jaxx now sits at the intersection of culture, entertainment, and retail. And I think we've talked previously about how Mighty Jaxx is moving to become both, not just as a physical enabler through toys, but as a digital enabler. So basically allowing content creators to create digital assets. I know you have a couple of quite exciting Web3 initiatives. Can you share with us why the move, the big move, from Mighty Jaxx into Web3 this year, and maybe two of some of those initiatives, which I think creators be really excited about, and consumers too.
So in 2018, we were introduced to blockchain. And so we decided to integrate blockchain into all of our products. So we designed a patent pending process of which a chip was designed. And at a manufacturing level, we are able to put it into the item. And with any smartphone, you could just authenticate the collectible itself. And why it works for us is because collectible market in the secondary marketplace often go up in value. And so provenance is a very big thing in this. And so that solves the immediate problem of authentication. And what we then realized was that we were able to fit all kinds of content possible to the individual user depending on the product that they bought. So if you buy a Marvel product and it's a Iron Man or it's a Batman product from DC, then we can feed you the exact content specific to the item that you like, right? And so it stands to reason that you will want to unlock a lot more utility using the IP that you love. And so from then on, sometime in 20, maybe early 21 last year, we were, the whole NFT thing, 3.0 thing all came about, and we were offered like a couple of deals with some of the larger platforms in the world to release collections like this, because we are known for creating like all this kind of content. And so when we look at the opportunity, it allows us to go to market a lot quicker. First of all, because we don't have to wait for the products to be manufactured, right? And so we did it. But to be honest, half the time, like I don't think anyone really knows what's going on at a point. And we just launched it, 6,000, and it sold out in 2 seconds, and we're like, okay.
This is the NFT collection with
this is
Binance.
right, with Binance.
Yeah, and I think sold out
Yeah.
6 seconds, right? Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, something's happening. And we went back, we panicked a little bit, and we're like, I guess something's working. And so we began to design a process of which we want better utility for the fans who own the products. Not necessarily just a digital asset that you can have in your wallet, right? But something that allows you to gain access into real life rewards. And so think of it like a CRM system or like a credit card system on steroids pretty much. And that you could trade it in the marketplace, right?
So Jackson, you talked about two exciting initiatives that you're rolling out as a new product on the Mighty Jaxx platform. And maybe you can share a little bit about how, an NFT owner can actually now create their own physical, object. Maybe you can share that.
Yeah, so those are pretty much like super secret projects, but I guess we can share today. And so what we do is we have equal desire from 3.0 crowd and 2.0 crowd to work with us, right? So the 3.0 crowd, the problem with them is that they want their digital assets and content to be realized in real life. Now, it could be through experiences, it could be through product. And one of the ways that we are gonna do it is to create one-of-one, on-demand prototyping of the figures, the collectibles, based off their ownership of the NFTs. So it's almost like, it's like how Tiffany did it with CryptoPunk, and they create the necklaces for it. So essentially, it's one-of-one, sort of on demand on that. And from the 2.0 to 3.0 side of things is really we want to harness the creators themselves, and they own a part of the new products that they work with us on. And so that when we develop the product line further, let's say we work with Adidas or whatever else, and we create new products, then the royalty component part of it will then be distributed out to the end creator itself. So the licensing point of view is actually quite an old school, like conventional way of working. It's basically you and I talking about it, how much we're gonna pay for it, and we pay. And the problem with that is it doesn't allow you to amplify a lot more further than that. And this allows it to happen. Right.
So basically, the use of blockchain technology doing two things. One is allowing more royalties to be actually given to creators, right, especially small creators. And the second one is actually the creation of a whole new category of assets, basically digital assets, and allowing people to own toys or the physical thing, but also people who own the IP to create that physical thing. And also, I think everybody, I think, should watch the space with Mighty Jaxx, because I think they have a very interesting online-offline experience coming on next year. Am I allowed to share that with the audience? Or is that top secret too?
Everything's top secret. Sure. It's we have a new Stranger Things experience that's coming in Asia. We're launching in Singapore first. That's going to be in second quarter of next year. You can look forward to more of an integrated sort of experiences. And you will feel like you're in the set itself, and the Demogorgons will come and grab you. So,
yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm the first who's going. So, thank you very much to all of our panelists today. I think we are, running out of time. I wanted to just end off with one sentence from each of you, just one sentence, right? What does the future of retail look like in 10 years? One sentence. Karl.
I think the future of retail is going to be creator-centered, enabled by blockchain in some sort of a digital verse.
Wow, you covered everybody's stuff. Thank you. Patricia.
Consumer values, what doesn't change is like consumer centricity still. And, we need to just stay in touch with that.
So keeping close to the ground with the consumer as a center. Yeah. Jackson.
I think it's absolutely emotional touch points, right, for the future of retail. just because I couldn't add something better than the two of them have already done so.
So basically capturing the heart of consumers. Absolutely. Yeah, actually. Thank you very much, my panelists. That was great.
Thanks, guys.